Since we're talking about the topic of respecting parents and family relationships, I want to remind you of something important. Many of us go out of our way to impress friends, colleagues, or even strangers, but when it comes to our own parents, we don't show the same effort. Have you ever seen how people act when they get a call from their boss? They pick up immediately, straighten their posture, and say, "Yes, sir, how can I help you?" But when their mother calls, they sigh heavily, roll their eyes, and say, "What now, Mom?" This is a major issue in our times. The Prophet warned us about a time when children would treat their parents like servants, ordering them around and showing no gratitude. We need to change this attitude. If your mother calls, answer with respect. If your father needs something, attend to it with eagerness. This is part of our faith. Now, let's get back to the topic of relationships. The Prophet said that as the day of judgment approaches, family ties will be cut. Siblings will stop talking, cousins will ignore each other, and children will abandon their parents in their old age. Have you noticed how, in our times, people are more connected than ever through social media, yet family bonds are weaker than ever? People post "Happy birthday, Mom" on Instagram, but don't visit her in real life. They say family is everything on Facebook, but refuse to help their siblings when they need it. This is the era of fake connections. In the past, families lived together or at least visit each other regularly. Now, a brother and sister can live in the same city and go years without seeing each other. Why? "I'm busy," they say. But they're not too busy to scroll through their phones for hours every day. Priorities have changed, and it's a sign of the times. Brothers and sisters, maintaining family ties is not just a cultural value. It's an Islamic obligation. The Prophet said that whoever cuts ties with their family will not enter Jannah. That's serious. No matter how hard it is, we must strive to keep those relationships alive. And I know what some of you might be thinking, but my family is toxic. Yes, some family members can be difficult. Some are disrespectful, some are selfish, and some have hurt us deeply. Islam does not ask you to tolerate abuse, but it does ask you to maintain a basic level of connection. If visiting causes harm, then call. If calling causes harm, then send a message. But don't cut them off completely unless there is a genuine risk to your well-being. Now, let's talk about another sign of the end times: the destruction of trust. The Prophet said that trust, amana, will disappear. In the past, a handshake was enough to seal a business deal. A person's word was his bond. Today, people write lengthy contracts with legal jargon, and still, someone finds a loophole to cheat you. Lying has become normalized. Cheating in business is common. Even in personal relationships, deception is everywhere. People lie on their resumes, fake their online profiles, and break promises without any guilt. And this isn't just happening between strangers. Even within families, trust is being broken. Siblings fight over inheritance, parents deceive their children, and spouses lie to each other. The Prophet said that one of the signs of the end times is that the most untrustworthy people will be given positions of authority. Think about it. How many leaders today are truly honest? How many people in power genuinely care about justice? Dishonest people are praised, while honest people are mocked as naive. And speaking of leadership, let's talk about another major sign of the end times: the widespread corruption of leaders. The Prophet said that as we near the day of judgment, leadership will be given to those who are not qualified. Have we not seen this happening? Incompetent, corrupt individuals rise to power while the truly capable and righteous are sidelined. The Prophet also mentioned that justice would become rare. Courts will favor the rich, and the poor will struggle to find fairness. Bribery will become the norm, and oppression will increase. We are living in these times now. Brothers and sisters, the world we see today is exactly what the Prophet described over 1400 years ago. These are not just random changes in society. They are clear signs. But here's the good news. Even in times of widespread corruption, we still have the ability to be among the righteous. The Prophet said, Islam began as something strange, and it will return to being something strange, so give glad tidings to the strangers. Who are these strangers? They are the ones who hold on to their faith when others abandon it. They are the ones who remain honest when deception is everywhere. They are the ones who maintain family ties when others cut them. So ask yourself, will you be among the strangers? Will you hold on to your values even when society pushes against you? The choice is ours. We can either follow the trends of the world and lose ourselves in the chaos, or we can stay firm on the path of truth. May Allah guide us, protect our families, and strengthen our faith. Ameen. There's really no harm in repeating this, so let me say it again. The brother I was with was driving on the right side, and I was seated on his left. You can probably guess where we were, the UK, right? Now, while driving, he received a text message. Instead of checking it himself, he handed the phone to the person sitting behind him and asked him to reply. I was genuinely impressed. In fact, I felt a sense of pride at that moment. I thought to myself, I wish young people in America could take a lesson from this. And not just them, I hoped I could apply this lesson in my own life as well. So the person in the back took the phone and asked, "What should I type?" The driver responded, "Tell them that I'm dropping off Brother Majid at such and such location." But here's where things took a turn. The guy in the back asked, "Do I write I'm or just I'm?" The driver casually replied, "No, just type I am. My mom won't mind." And that moment hit me hard. It hurt on so many levels. The first thing that struck me was that he didn't even see anything wrong with it. You understand what that means, right? If he had at least recognized that it was wrong, he wouldn't have said it so openly in front of me. That means he's probably been doing this for a while, especially with his own parents. Naturally, the rest of the car ride turned into a full-on lecture. I reminded him of what the Prophet taught us about who deserves our best treatment. When a man once asked the Prophet, "Who deserves my best companionship?" the Prophet responded, "Your mother." The man asked, "Then who?" The Prophet again said, "Your mother." The man asked a third time, "Then who?" Again, the Prophet replied, "Your mother." It was only on the fourth time that he finally said, "Then your father." Subhanallah! The companions who heard this had to laugh. But don't misunderstand the hadith the way some people do. There was actually a brother I knew who completely misapplied this hadith. He had just become a father. One night, when their newborn started crying, he woke up his wife and said, "Hey, wake up. Check on the baby." She looked at him and said, "But you woke up first. You heard him before I did?" Logically, he should have taken responsibility, but to avoid an argument, she got up, checked on the baby, and put him back to sleep. A little while later, the baby cried again. This time, the husband woke up first again and nudged his wife. "Hey, the baby's crying." She got up and tended to the baby once more. And then it happened a third time. But this time, when she nudged him to get up, he said, "Why should I? He's your son just like he's my son. You should take care of him." She looked at him, waiting for an explanation, and then he said, the Prophet said, "Your mother, your mother, your mother, then your father. So that means you should be the one getting up first." Subhanallah! He thought he had a solid argument, but he completely misunderstood the hadith. And unfortunately, that's how some people interpret things to their advantage. May Allah protect us and grant us understanding. Ameen. But let me ask you, who deserves your best treatment? Who should be receiving your thoughtful responses to messages? Who should be getting that loving kiss on the cheek emoji? If that's not your usual habit, then start tonight, inshallah. If your mother messages you, don't just respond with dry, brief answers. Show her love and care. Instead of just WS or RSL for Wa alaikum salam, type it out completely with respect. In fact, save a beautiful response with heart emojis in your phone so that every time she texts, you can reply with warmth and affection. And guess what? If you do that, you might even get a call from her asking, "Are you okay?" And you can say, "Yes, Mama. I made tawbah to Allah regarding how I used to respond before." The importance of neighborly relations. Now, let's talk about relationships beyond family, our neighbors. The Prophet emphasized this so much that Jibreel repeatedly came to him, reminding him to take care of neighbors. The Prophet said, Jibril kept advising me about the rights of neighbors to the point where I thought he would make them part of my inheritance. Imagine that. Imagine if your neighbor had a right to inherit from you just because of how close they live to you. That's how much Islam stresses the importance of being a good neighbor. But today, we see a very different reality. People live in the same neighborhood for years, yet they don't even know each other's names. The culture of community and connection has been replaced with isolation. Let's be honest. How many of us are truly considerate of our neighbors? How many of us think, I need to cut my grass because I don't want my neighbors to be annoyed, rather than I need to cut it to avoid a city fine? Do you see the difference? How many of us teach our kids to be mindful of others when they play outside? Not because it's against the rules, but because it's the right thing to do. How many of us make sure not to park in a way that inconveniences our neighbors? If we truly believe in Allah and the Last Day, we should be people who honor our neighbors. Signs of the Day of Judgment. Now, let's move on to something deep. One of the signs of the Day of Judgment is that people will only greet those they know. Imagine this. You're at the masjid, you pray next to someone, but when you leave, you only say salam to your friends while ignoring the stranger next to you. This is exactly what the Prophet warned us about. Once, a man walked past a gathering and greeted only one person. A companion who saw this said, "The Prophet spoke the truth." People asked him, "Why did you say that?" He explained that the Prophet had foretold a time when greetings would become selective. And today we see this happening. Another sign of the last day? Truthful people will be called liars and liars will be believed. How many times have we seen massive lies spread across the world? One false image, one fabricated story, and suddenly the entire world believes it. The Prophet warned us about this long before the age of social media. And speaking of dishonesty, look at the state of business today. The Prophet said that a time will come when trust will disappear, and it will be so rare that people will point to one honest man in an entire city. There are businesses today where people deliberately break things just so they can charge more for repairs. In fact, I personally know a brother who worked for a garage door repair company. One day, his boss saw a simple issue and intentionally broke another part of the garage to make the repair cost higher. The brother couldn't take it anymore and left the job because he knew this was haram. Where is the honesty? The Prophet told us that one of the biggest signs that trust is gone is when leadership is given to those who are unqualified. Today, we see corrupt leaders ruling nations, people being oppressed, and those with no integrity holding power. The Prophet said, "When authority is given to those who are not worthy of it, then await the hour." Subhanallah. These are just some of the many signs of the Day of Judgment. May Allah guide us, protect us, and make us among those who uphold truth, sincerity, and kindness in every aspect of life. Ameen.